Welcome to Mindshifters Radio. Today is Wednesday, March the 2nd. April the 2nd. What am I talking about? March the 2nd. And so, welcome to the show. Delighted that you're here. And we get to engage in this conversation again. And of course, if you are on the Needle app, you can make comments in that comment button. We'd love to hear from you. Or you can push the call button if you have something to say, something you need support with, question, thought, answer, idea. Where is your work heading? Anything we can do to support you in your work. It would be a delight to assist and move forward. And from what I shared yesterday, I really appreciated Susan's processing the day before because it opened a space for me to do another piece of major work. And so that's the beauty of this process. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you're going to go far, go together. And I see Miss Jeannie has got her hand up. So, Jeannie, welcome. Just hold on a second, Jeannie. We're not hearing you. How about letting it go, Jeannie, and try again? It's showing you. There we go. Let's try it again. Okay, now you're showing up. Well, I'm not sure what's happening. It looks like we got a problem with the app. Can't hear you, Jeannie. Celinda, let's see if we can hear your voice.
Hello.
Okay, I can hear you, Celinda.
Yeah, I can hear you all. I can hear you, Michael, loud and clear.
Right. And we'll see if we can get Jeannie to hit the caller button again and get her in. So how are you, young lady? What's on your mind today?
Oh my goodness. Since we're leaving in the early part of May, Larry and I have a sort of a wild look in our eyes, trying to get everything
Leaving,
prepped.
heading to your new location where you're going to be for the next whatever time period?
Yeah, in the Willamette.
Cool.
It's very strange. This was the third time that we've come back to the valley, so we don't know if we're going to be able to be composted here or not.
I actually just bought a sign to put in our garden that says trespassers will be composted.
No, I just say when I croak, would you kindly just roll me into the compost?
Of course, yes. I think that everybody should be doing that. We're robbing the earth of many things when we think that a carcass is something to do with life.
I think it has. It's called decomposition and recreation.
Yes.
Fortunately, here in Oregon, we are now having funeral homes that are doing green burial.
Yes. Yeah, that's spreading pretty much around the country.
Cool.
I see, online you can buy a cardboard cremation box or a cardboard burial chamber instead of spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on something to prohibit the minerals and things that the structure is made of getting back to the earth and carrying on with life. So, yes, there is some awakening going on.
I have a Baha'i friend in a state that I lived in before that when one of the Baha'i gentlemen died at about 90, the Baha'is decided to bury him uh, in, in place on one of the premises. But I don't know if he owned a home or whether someone offered theirs. And it was the guerrilla burial. They were out in the middle of the night digging the and they found out that that could be done in that state.
It was
Could
legal.
be
Yeah.
done, but the state didn't want it to be done that way, of course,
Yeah.
economics and all that. But the embalming, and I just found out that actually the uh, cremating is highly toxic. Both of those are highly toxic. The cremation for the
It's
horrible.
where the money is.
Yep, you got it.
Show me the money. Remember that line? What was the movie? Show me the money. Anyway, yeah. If it can make a buck, unfortunately, people who don't know who they are as human beings, that they're creators, will twist and turn every which way but loose to try and squeeze a buck out of it.
It's all about safety, Michael. Somehow they think that the god of money will keep them safe.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck on that one.
And now it's the god of technology.
Yes. Yep.
Did I ever mention to you that Tolkien, the author of The Hobbit and the Trilogy of the Rings, in the 50s had, and I haven't Googled it yet, but there was a whole article in an alternative magazine that just went into extensive links on his political views. And he was saying, beware the god of technology.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
Definitely time to wake up.
it is definitely. And that's just a viewpoint. Is that true? I don't
Yes.
know. But I know that I am being led to walk away from it as much as possible. Yeah.
Cool. Well, do you have a question for us based on the work? Something in mind?
I really like what's happening in my life as a result of the work I'm doing. I'm really grateful for all of you and all of your
I'm with you on that.
help. And right now, I'm in a very good place. And right now, I am willing to learn about myself in ways that I haven't learned before and ask the questions, as Tim says. And I had heard that when I took an educational kinesiology course a long time ago, it might have been a Touch Your Health course, but the instructor handed us handouts, and one of the handouts was about the levels of intelligence. And what amazed me, this was probably 30 years ago or more, was that asking the question was a higher level of intelligence than seeking the answer. And
It's the
of
most
course,
important thing there is.
yep, and I didn't have a clue what that meant,
Yeah.
but it so piqued me. And what I am realizing this past year, it's hitting me more and more viscerally that that was absolutely true. And thanks to all of the teachings that I have been learning from all the sources that are working for the common good, which includes us because we're a part of that one good, um, have bringing me into a fuller and fuller realization of what that means for me and for the world.
One of the things, when we realize we're in an energetic world, until you have literally the vibration of the question, you cannot resonate in from the universe the answer to that question.
Sounds similar
The
to
ability,
Einstein.
I'm sure, I'm sure you've heard me tell a story about Einstein, who was asked if he was
Yeah,
given a challenge where he had a problem to solve and he had 1 hour, what would he do? He said, I'd spend 55 minutes clarifying my question and then I'd solve the problem in 5 minutes.
yeah, I
And,
love
you know,
that. And I remember that. In
it's,
our little local newspaper, and then I'll sign off with this because it's rather humorous. On Einstein's 72nd birthday, one of the photographers came up and asked if he could take his picture. And Einstein said, "Oh, sure." And so the photographer took the picture, and Einstein had stuck his tongue out, and he had this impish look with his tongue sticking.
yeah, I've seen the picture.
Yeah, and the photographer just had this funny look on his face, I guess. And Einstein said, "That's my state about politics."
Cool.
Yeah. Well, Have a good, sir. And
All right, young lady, you have a blessed one. The movie, by the way, was Jerry Maguire. All right, and Jeannie's got a question. She was trying to get on to give us a question that someone had sent us from email. So let me just to this. That'll keep things silent. And so the question was, let me get over to that screen on my phone. The question was, how do I forgive myself for being a despicable human? Wow, that's a loaded question. Well, my first offering would be the words despicable and human are an oxymoron. They can't be put together in one sentence. If someone is in a despicable state, there's no human life in them. So there can't be such a thing as a despicable human. However, if somebody has convinced you and your mind has convinced you that there's something despicable about you, I would suggest that you never, ever, ever even consider forgiving yourself for that. In fact, never forgive anybody for anything.
Can anybody else hear you? And they said no.
Okay. Excuse me. My bad. My error. I had shifted screens, and when I shift screens, the system goes off. And before we get any further into that conversation, I see that Peter from Sweden is on the line. So hello, Peter.
Hello, Michael.
Oh, you are loud and clear. Welcome. How are things in Sweden?
It's good. It's spring. It's sunshine. It's blue sky. It's all good.
Awesome. Yeah, we're out there in the garden getting things rocking.
Yeah, same here.
Started harvesting asparagus 3 days ago. Awesome.
I saw that. Well, we're not even getting close to any kind of harvesting, but I saw that, yes.
Yeah. Well, I was shocked that they're up this early. I mean, the dandelions are out, and that's about it. Otherwise, so. But anyway, it was pretty cool to see them come up. We've really been nurturing them, fed them a lot of compost, and so it's a nice reward. So, what's on your mind today? What's exciting for you?
I heard you speak about completion the other day.
Right.
Your next story and the completion, and I like to get some of that. That's where I'm at.
Tell me more. Tell me what. I don't have the brain cells to know quite what you're saying. So, give me a little more detail, if you would. Rattle a few more brain cells for me.
I want to be complete.
Oh, you want to be finished with your work. Oh, I
There
see.
you
Okay.
go.
So here's my advice. I have some very specific advice for you.
Good.
Do worksheets on patience.
I don't need that.
Yeah, right. Okay. I got it. I got it with that tone of voice. So that would be your number one issue would be patience. And when you
Well,
realize, stop and think about the size of the project that you've engaged in and probably unsuspectingly when you came to Heartland. Oh, let's see. How many years has
95.
Elliot been rotating around the sun?
We were there we came 95.
95, 30 years. So Elliot's 32? Wow.
31 this year.
30.
31 this year.
Wow. So you probably didn't suspect when you first came to Heartland and you and your bride and your son Elliot spent 2 years with us, that what you were taking on was the willingness to open the veil of your temple, which would be what we call the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind, and expose everything your generations that had never been cleaned up. And when you do the math, I mean, the ancient scriptures talk about the sins of the fathers, recognizing, of course, the word sin is an archer term, just means off the mark. The energetic patterns that are off the mark are registered within every cell in the structure. The wonderful things, of course, are registered in every cell in the structure as well, including the sperm and the egg. So were you to conceive a child tomorrow, that child would have, as you have with your ancestors, every thought they've ever thought, every feeling, every reality, every skill, every unresolved issue. It's right there in our genes. And the scriptures talk about 4 generations back. And if you count up 4 generations, that's 31 lives. And of course, if you ask yourself the question, well, where did the 4th generation back get their dynamics? But from the previous 4 who got them from the previous 4. And when you just go back, if you do the math and go back just 30 generations, we're talking about dealing with the issues of 1.6 billion people. And the fact that, and we've talked about this many times in your family system, as I in mine, we were the early adopters, which means we started from scratch. We started from a foundation that had some pretty rough stuff in it. And as you develop the skills, you move into deeper and deeper places within yourself. You weren't on yet. I know you've been on several times the last week or so, but you weren't on yesterday's show, were you?
No, but I've listened to it.
Oh, you listened to it. So, I look at that issue with my neck that Susan was so kind to ask the question and have the conversation about, that opened that for me so that I could process it. I mean, that's a structural thing, what people would call physical. By the way, the issue in my neck, which since the very earliest days when I started working with and becoming aware of bodies, I became aware of, and then, as I shared in that particular story, it was before Michael J was born, and Michael J's 42, so it's 43 or 44 years ago. I've been working on that piece for that long. And as of this moment, no sign of stress has reappeared in that part of my structure. And that stress had been in my structure as long as I can remember. And I feel gratitude for the fact that after many, many layers of cleaning out the trauma in that I was able to go back to, at least at this moment. Now, maybe something will come along and resonate it, and there'll be another layer of work for me to do there. And if there is, I'll be quite willing to do it. I'll be quite happy to do it. But to have the tools and to be aware of and move my breath deep enough to move into that tissue and have the memory surface of sitting in your grade 9 math class with Mr. Munn up there teaching, and this bully coming up, and after I don't know how many times, literally just punched me right in the back of the neck and like just above my shoulder, right where that muscle is. And wow, it only took me 44 years. But guess what? It's gone. Look at how many things you've worked through and notice that they're gone. And each time another piece is gone, you're strengthened at another level, and you're able to handle the next layer of what needs to come up, and the next layer and the next layer. So my offering would be to, and maybe more important than patience at this point might be faith. You are on track and you're cleaning up a database that's been in development for thousands of years with millions, billions of lives input into it. And at least this time around, we're the early adopters. So it means we're taking down the heavy load to begin and then moving to subtler and subtler levels. And oh yes, wouldn't it be nice to be if it were done yesterday?
Like I said, I did listen to yesterday's show, and you did mention the word completion, and now you're saying it again, finished. So yes, that's where we want to go. I mean, I still, like you said, Heartland 95. I can still remember my second breath work, where I touched into that, and
Connected space.
yeah, truly, truly, truly experienced something that I knew was it, and that I've never experienced before. And the whole phrase, once I was lost, now I'm found, was available at that time. But now it seems like I was found, but now I'm lost. Because it seems like I am more lost in my stuff than ever before. Maybe not ever before, but not near completion.
Well, I'm excited for you because what that says to me, and I think back to, the experience you had and the opening and the healing that you did while you were taking care of your father as he was passing, and what a plateau you reached. I think about the third and the fifth day in your quantum still point sessions where you talked about, I was just with God. Oh, it isn't about being a Christian, it's about tapping into that mind of Christ. When I think about those things and then you share with me what you just shared, for me, that's excitement because you're at such a level that you're able to dig into a depth where the average person couldn't have a clue about how to get there or do anything with it. You're at the point of a level of your work that few people ever even begin to approach. And as you've heard me say once or twice before, healing ain't Dr. Feelgood.
Yeah, I'm just crying. I am crying to the point where I think the English word is inconsolable.
Oh,
It's like, and hearing your story yesterday, hearing your story today about, but yeah, you were speaking it yesterday, and the crying was coming then again. It's like, it's just keep on coming like a never-ending tap. It's just, I'm crying.
so let's think about the history of our families. Yours in Sweden, the Vikings, that whole thing. I don't know if you've watched any of the recent Viking movies. Now we've watched quite a few of them. They're pretty powerful. But when you think about, and of course my Scotch heritage, I've shared with you before watching that movie, the Braveheart, and how much unresolved grief, how many unshed tears do you suppose are in your bloodline or mine in our history? And I just hold the space and join you in willingness to notice anywhere in your structure that tightens in response to that thought, anywhere that there's the slightest inhibition of your breath, and allow your breath to be restored to those places. Allow your tissue structure to soften and yield up their content. Literally, ultimately, yielding up. The skill we're inviting people to do is to literally loosen the screws that we've put in generation after generation after generation into our genes of shut this down. Don't ever look at this. Don't ever feel this. Don't ever deal with this. You won't survive it. And notice that as opposed to a family filled with trauma, what you've got right now at this instant is a family, each one at different places, us doing our work, who are here breathing with you and holding a space for you right now. So just physiologically, go back to that quantum still point and just breathe into the deepest spaces that you can. And notice that you hit a new level of vitality. Just before this level came up, where were you? I guarantee you were flying high as a kite. And that means you've now got the power to bring up the next layer that nobody in your bloodline has ever been able to do.
I don't know about the kiting, but yes, I've been doing a lot of the right things and building vitality, but I haven't really been I haven't been soaring. But yes, I've been doing a lot of right things, yeah. Intensely doing the work, yes.
And as you do that, you get the opportunity to let go of all resistance. And the major place that, or the major way that resistance is held in the body is with the breath. And as you let go of it, you uncover the next level. I'll remind you, and I'll remind everybody who's listening, of a quote from a gentleman who wrote this back in the late 1600s or early 1700s, what it is that we'd be looking at. It's from a man named Francois Fenelon, who passed away in 1715. So I'm not sure exactly what year he wrote this, but here's what he said we'd be facing if we actually took on the work. And he describes taking on the work as increasing the light in you. So he says, as the light increases, we see ourselves to be worse than we thought. Basically, the question was asked of Jeannie, how do I forgive myself for being so despicable? We are amazed at our former blindness as we see issuing forth from the depths of our heart a whole swarm of shameful feelings like filthy reptiles crawling from a hidden cave. We could never believe that we had harbored such things, and we stand aghast as we watch them gradually appear. But while our faults diminish, the light by which we see them waxes brighter, and we're filled with horror. Bear in mind, he says, for your comfort, that you only perceive our malady when the cure begins. See, the same thing's going on for 7.5 billion people on the planet right now. But only the ones who open that gate and do their work have any idea what it is they need to deal with. Most people are so drugged by the hostility in the culture, by the chemicals in the culture, by the food in the culture, by the alcohol, by the drugs, that they never even become aware that it's going on. It's just oblivion. So this is the real work of Yeshua, and it's not easy. It's been resisted for centuries by all but the most dedicated. In fact, you might remember there's one passage where Yeshua instructs his disciples what to do, what they're supposed to do, and half of them, quote, said, "Too hard a saying. Who can understand?" And they left. They left 12 disciples, and the energy, you can get a sense of it by the next question Yeshua asks. He turns to Peter. Now the 12 are left. And the energy is so intense of what they're looking at and not wanting to deal with. He turns to Peter and says, "You guys gonna leave too? Like, is it too much?" And it's a lot, yeah. But somebody has to do it. Elsewise, the whole of humanity goes down the drain.
But Peter didn't do it, did he now?
He stayed. The others, after saying, "This is a hard saying, who can hear it?" It then says, "From that time, many of his disciples went back and walked with him no more." And basically what they had said to him, they're like, "What do we need to do? What are you requiring of us?" And he gave them an Aramaic idiom. What he said to them in response, the thing that elicited them leaving, was, "Eat my body and drink my blood. Take communion," basically, is the Greek interpretation of that, or the Greek misinterpretation of that. But in fact, it's an Aramaic idiom that basically we could more correctly say what he said to them when they said, "What do we need if we're going to reach this state that you're talking about of being truly, fully human? What do we need to do?" And his idiom translated properly be, "You must emulate me and do the same work that I've done. You must look beneath the perceptual constructs of your mind, collapsing them so that rather than projection of that which you resist inside yourself, you face directly and forgive. You remove." This is the answer to the person who asked the question, "What about how do I forgive me for being so despicable?" No, you never forgive yourself. You forgive despicable. You forgive that energy that does not belong there. You face directly and remove everything from your heart, scriptural word, from your unconscious, which separates you from functioning as the human being, the love that you are. And, you know, remember, go back to that moment when you were fully connected. And that's the truth of you. And now you're unwinding everything that's untrue. And, to Yeshua, they said, "Too hard a saying. Who can hear that?" Anything that interferes with you experiencing yourself as the created essence of love, you're going to have to face and work through. And, it's like, this is an eternal project. This isn't just something of a lifetime. What brings us back into full relationship with the conscious, active, present love that we are? And only when one takes that work on, as you said in day 3 of your quantum still point, it's like such a powerful insight when you came back and you said, "Oh, it's not about being a Christian. It's about living in that connectedness with that mind of Christ." That's when one becomes a disciple. And that's when one's foot enters the path. And disciple means properly taught. That's when one goes into the teaching on the next level. And it's not for wimps. I mean, it's declaring victory and actually achieving a victory over some of the most primal terror that anybody has ever experienced. So you're undoing it, my friend, and I'm so excited for you, delighted for you, proud to be part of your process and bringing these tools to you, and in compassion for the layers that you're going through. I can 50 years, I could go back and talk about a lot of layers of some pretty heavy stuff. You're overcoming the psychosis of humanity. And it's no wimp's task, that's for sure. I just opened a file and there's a quote from Carl Jung, and here's what he says. The demise of society will not be a physical threat. It will be a mass delusion, a collective psychosis of sorts. Greater than all the physical dangers are the tremendous effects of delusional ideas, which are yet denied all reality in our world-blinded consciousness. Our much vaunted reason and our boundlessly overestimated will are sometimes utterly powerless in the face of unreal thoughts. The wolf inside the man is far more a threat to human existence than external forces. When mental forces become so toxic as to harm our overall well-being on an individual and collective level, a psychic epidemic can result. He said that's what will cause the collapse of society. And you're changing that. Because it's when those things are held at bay, when those things are held unconscious, when those things are drugged or drank out of existence, raged out of awareness, that's when they have their power. So I hold the space for you, acknowledge your willingness, your strength, your character, and you're moving forward. It's pretty awesome. And you might remember from the closing lesson that I do in the intensives on the spiritual journey, you might remember the line from that closing lesson. It is a strange feeling, this walking alone. But you're facing it.
But what about all this crying? Am I to welcome it? Am I to...
Well, if you go back to one of the intensives, you remember when a question like that was asked, I would turn to the board, and in the largest letters I could, I would write. What would I write?
All of the above.
All of the above. That's it exactly. Every tool. This work started out for me with the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop with the forgiveness work. And from there, each other tool has developed. Here's another of all of the above. How do I work through this layer when it comes up? How do I work through this layer? What do I do with this? Well, that's where you go into responsibility communication instead of the projection communication. Oh, well, what do I do with this? Well, that's where you have to look at the codependent issue that's driving your behavior and prompting you to do things against your own will and choice just because your power person did it to you. Oh, what about this? Well, this is where I'm going to take the commitment out. I'm going to sit in front of the mirror and I'm going to focus on love and bring that presence into my structure. Every one of those tools. I'm going to breathe. Every one of the tools.
Well, the feeling is that if I let go, it's like I won't be functioning in the society.
Yeah. I hear you. You're entering into a new place. It is a strange feeling, this walking alone. Yeah. Because there'll be, things that were wonderful, things that were comforting, things that were fun. And now that you're stepping into your real life and your real work, it's like that stuff's kind of hollow and empty. I don't really want any part of it. Used to be my life.
Yeah, but at the same time as you say now, as in now, it's 30 years.
Right. Yes. How exciting that in only 30 years you've got this much of a leg up on how many generations of unresolved trauma. I mean, just look at the the generation before you. Everybody that you knew in that generation. If let's imagine we've got a scale from 1 to 10. 10 would be the level of pure bliss, joy, aliveness, love, and everything just rocking your life would be a 10. And 0 would be total down and out suicidal depression. If you were to rate, and you don't need to give us, specifics, but just give us some numbers. If you were to rate the people in your immediate family preceding you, like mom, dad, grandparents, aunts, uncles, if you were to just rate what number did they live at? Were they all at a 10? Were they all at a 2? 4? Where were they?
I already forgot which end was what, but no, not too
0
good.
would be depression. 10 would be full blown aliveness.
Yeah, 1, 2, maybe 1, 2, 3.
So if you look at in 30 years, if you go back 30 years ago, where would you have rated yourself? And before people start doing their work, they're at the average of what their predecessors have done.
Yeah, 2.
So if you were to look at your, let's say, the last year of your life, and you rated yourself on a scale of 1 to 10.
6, 7.
So you've come from a multi-generational family system that averaged about a 2 or maybe a 2.5 that you were at 30 years ago, and now you're at a 6 or a 7. Now, think about somebody you know who's never engaged in the work. Hasn't, maybe somebody that you shared it with and went, it's all bullshit. Think of that person. Where were they at 30 years ago? And notice they're probably in the same place today. See, one of the things what that happens is we turn the assessment of our lives over to our minds, and our minds can only assess with what's in them. And so the mind says, oh, I was upset then, I'm upset now. See, I haven't made any progress. Hey, man, if in one generation you've gone from being at a level 2 on a scale of 10 to a level 6 or 7 in just 30 years, when all the generations before you never even got above a 2 or a 3, that's pretty monumental. And look at the lives around you that you touch with that. And the mind says, well, but see, I'm upset, therefore nothing's changed. Well, hey, a level 2 upset or state of ongoing being is literally horrendous compared to I'm at a level 6 and there's another layer up for me. That's monumental progress in one generation. Monumental. But the mind, carbon-based memory, can't see that, can't comprehend that.
Yeah, looking at my last worksheet, which was today, my goal, my desire, my story was again archery competition. And again, I could interchange that as to living life. And my desire was that living life comes easy, natural, relaxed, and joyful. And then I go down to 6C. I asked to be shown a time when I have not fulfilled this. And the reply in my mind is most oftenly, have I ever? That's what's being presented, and that's probably the at least last 2 months. Every forgiveness, every worksheet is, have I ever? And I know I have,
Fill,
but
yeah, fill that idea up just a little bit more. Have I ever?
yeah, I want my desire for living life to comes easy, natural, relaxed, and joyful. And then 6C, I ask to be shown a time when I have not fulfilled number 3, which is life comes easy, natural, relaxed, and joyful. So my mind presents me, well, have I ever? Have I ever
Right.
having life come easy, joyful, relaxed? That's where it's at. And I know, like you say, I know it is not so, and yet that's what the mind is presenting,
Yep.
even a way down into the forgiveness.
Well, there's an interesting story of, on the beaches near the oceans, people collect crabs to eat. And one of the things that they found when they collect crabs is they can have an open bucket, which a crab can easily crawl out of. But once two crabs are in the bucket, neither crab can get out of the bucket. Because if one starts to climb out, the other one will grab it and pull it back in again. You don't need to put a lid on the bucket.
Okay.
And that's basically what the ego mind does. It's like, don't leave me behind. And if you look at life 30 years ago at a level 2, and you look at today, asking yourself the question, have I ever? When you assess yourself living at a level 6 on a scale of 10, sounds like you've done pretty well at it.
And it can be better, and I think that's one of my issues.
Yeah. So then how did it look like your life to have your power person say to you, you could have done better. You should have done better. Why the hell didn't you do better?
Yeah, that's my story. As of now, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Here's your next worksheet.
You mean the next in line? There are so many
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
already.
Yep. Exactly. So notice that the bottom line of your whole conversation right now, you're right back to the power person dynamic.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. So my suggestion would be that it's time to go back. You've got all the links to the codependence to interdependence self-study intensive, all 90 hours. I'd start, you know, and start going back through that codependence intensive. It'll have a whole new level of meaning, because what's sinking your level of aliveness right now is the next awareness of your power person message that says you can't do it. And that's what needs to be forgiven. And why do you suppose your power person passed that message on to you? I guarantee it was because it was passed on to them.
I was
And it was
just forming
passed.
that. I was just forming that question in my mind because recently my grandparents on my father's side has been so vividly with me. So I was just thinking about that. Not my relationship with them, as I recall, has been uh, very very good. But as you say, I was just forming that question. Could that be that the power person, even though I haven't experienced it firsthand, as I can recall, but still it's there.
And it may well be that your grandparents are, go, Peter, this is a layer we need help with. I don't know if you've been on the show where I shared about 2 years ago when I was in a still point session and I had this instruction to look downward. My eyes are closed. And I'm like, what am I looking down? Just look down. Where did I look down? And there was this huge, like a field of darkness larger than like the space. I couldn't imagine how huge it was. And it was filled with little tiny specks of light. And I'm looking at this and I ask, what am I looking at? What is this? And what I was told is these are your ancestors in the darkness they're living in. And they're asking for your help to process it. Will you do that?
Yes.
Yes, that's the only possible answer to me. It was just like, what a privilege, what an honor to be asked. And yeah, the layers can get pretty heavy. And so, Susan had asked the question, is Peter talking about generations of non-awareness, depression due to terrible losses and resulting grief? So we'll ask you that question, Peter. Is that fit for you?
Say that again.
So Susan's question was, is Peter talking about generations of non-awareness / depression due to terrible losses and or resultant grief?
You were cutting out. I did get the part depression never been talked about, but the word you said before, non-conscious,
Non-awareness. Non-awareness.
non-awareness. Yeah, that's a lot that's been coming up. That is definitely one of my power person dynamic. Third stage, what I will do, I go blotto, I go unconscious. In Swedish language, we have my favorite word is närvarande, and varande means being, and när means near. So near being, and then we have another. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful word, and I don't know how many times I've written that as my goal, my desire
Right.
in any given situation. And then we have another word which then has varande again, being, and then instead for near it's distant or away, so away from being. And
A non-being
that is,
life.
yeah, exactly, totally. And that's what I meant with the once I was found, now I'm lost, that
Right.
I lose myself to the non-being or the frånvarande, as we would say.
Well, I think that's the metaphor of the flood in the scriptures, the flood that destroys the earth, is that when and water represents emotion, when this flood of grief, of pain, of trauma surfaces from the past, when we get to the level of vitality where we can open the trapdoor and look at the next level, whoa, the flood of energy that moves is monumental. And yeah, there's a tendency to get lost in it. And I've seen people doing this work, opening the pathway, doing monumental pieces of work, and then just getting lost. And literally, I can think of one person, it was about 10 years later that they came back. They just left the work. And about 10 years later, they came back and it's like, tell me, what was that you were saying? Like, I'm back. Yeah, when that unconscious gate opens and what's in there starts to flood to the surface, it just wipes out awareness. And that's why the work, to me, doing the work is kind of like a going to the gym. It's like into the gym to strengthen that state of, what was the word? Vulnerability? Being?
So, you keep cutting out for me, so try again the last part.
Yeah, I was just saying that that state of being, that the flood of the unresolved emotional trauma of the generations wipes it out and we get lost in it. And doing this work is like being in the exercise room, lifting the weights, doing the spiritual work that allows being to stay conscious, active, and present no matter what happens in the external world or what happens in carbon-based memory.
But that is the very thing I'm calling in and begging, asking again about completion. Again, I mentioned several times about the archery, and it's just such a beautiful picture for me, in the sense that
Right.
shooting at the target without the target face, I am shooting from being. I am living life from being. I am being. Then I put up the target face. I'm now moving from to the second phase of the power person dynamic, and
Right.
stress builds and resist. And then when you take it
Flood
one step
comes.
further, the flood comes, and one step further, you start, you go to a competition with it. And now, I mean, it's like I know it to come. I'm going there I shoot less now than before, but I go every Tuesday. We have a family reunion at the club, and we do a Tuesday competition in all good-heartedness. And yet, here we go again, and it completely, the stress builds. And even though I go there with the intention of remaining närvarande in being, and somewhere along the line I lose again and again and again. I lose to, like, as I remember, I forgot her name, Linda. uh, she, do you mean I'm going to give up love for this? And yet I do it every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Yet
notice,
still,
and yeah, and notice that your power person was your archery teacher, and that dose of disapproval you're still processing through, because I suspect it's been going on for so many generations.
yeah,
And
like you say, it's so beautiful, because when you mentioned the word sin and the meaning of that, because that's exactly what I do.
right,
I mean, you see me, so I shoot well, and yet I do sin, because I I give up love. I lose myself to some other goal.
yeah,
I can't even. I'm really aiming to see the goal in the moment, and I'm not. The the it's so loud that somewhere along the line I lose myself to that, and then I do the
I hear
next
you.
worksheet.
Yeah. And notice that at this moment, that's all still there. That's all still in your face, and you can offer a joyful, laughing voice about it. Think back to 30 years ago when you actually lived at a level 2. Could you have given any kind of a laughing, joyful voice to describe the process?
No,
That's an indicator of the progress that you've made. And, you're not finished yet.
I was at a real competition a couple of weeks back, and I did not do well. I lost to fear again, and when I came home, I did some forgiveness, and I cried for, I think, 2 hours. And the only word that came to mind was devastated. I was completely devastated. And after that, I did feel gratitude, because
Mm.
the archery competition had brought that to the surface. So, I mean, I could, and like you said, you asked 30 years ago, I would not have felt any kind of gratitude towards that. But I
Yeah.
did, even though it
And,
hurt like crazy.
you know, and it, to me, the beauty of the fact that you still have the archery competition going in your life, and that dad was your archery teacher and your power person, and that this is still bringing up those layers as you do your work. That's perfect. Like, what a setup. And then it sounds like maybe grandmother, grandfather coming in with, okay, we're rooting for you because we need to let go of this one too. So, and that thing that I shared of, that visual ahead of the darkness and those lights, the message that I got, part of the message that I got from what that was, they were asking me as I was in a body doing this, or what we call a body, doing my work to assist and process that. And it seemed to me, I wouldn't say this absolutely, but it seemed to me that they were just stuck where they were. There was, without being in a body, there was nothing they could do about it. That's what it seemed like. They were just stuck there and like asking for assistance and support. So maybe, allow yourself to sit down and do a written conversation with grandmother or grandfather and see what comes out of it. Just, kind of sit and listen to them and ask them to talk to you. Might be powerful.
Will do.
And we'll be here holding a space. And thank you. I think this conversation has been a gift to everybody. So much, much, much appreciation, Peter.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Tell Tanya we said hello and we send hugs. The kids too. Blessings.
Will do. Right
Thanks,
back
everybody.
at you.
All right. Received 100%. And thanks, everybody, for joining us. Congratulations on a powerful piece of work. Much appreciation. Bye-bye.